Platforms that government, for example, government officials are getting on, and we are trying to hear what they want to talk about sustainability, their programs, how they are looking at sustainability for the country. And majority of the corporates are actually dovetailing their actions through the government. So I'm seeing that there's actually a lot of conversations happening around sustainability across sectors. This will develop further as the demand increases for sustainability products and processes, and I see that a lot of other voices will be added to this.
So, you have been in the field for over 15 years and worked in mass media verticals and in communication verticals in NGOs and for profit sector as well, where you have set a lot of milestones. I want to call upon that experience. In hindsight, when you look back, what would you recommend as a preferred route to make a move into sustainability communication? Media or pure play PR? Which would have made this easier for you?
I would say at this point of time, it's pretty open because sustainability is slightly technical in nature, but it's not a subject that one can't learn. Of course, one understands how resources are utilized, and there's a lot of technical skills that one requires. Like we have sustainability reporting, for example, which
Right.
is you would have to go through a GRI framework or some international framework that the IRC is another framework that we use in sustainability. So these frameworks are basically awareness related. You need to be aware of these frameworks, how to utilize them. So slightly technical, but I would say that at this point, it's actually free for all because there's nobody who's an expert in it. There's no set pattern that one follows. Of course, you have to be a storyteller to begin with. And I believe that all PR people, whether it's PR people or whether it's people from the media, they all are very great storytellers. So right now the demand is for storytellers to tell that narrative on sustainability. So I think it's easy route for anybody. That whatever route you take does not matter as long as you're able to tell the narrative on sustainability.
Excellent. So, what you're telling me is if you ever thought about getting into this field, now would be the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now is the time. There's a lot of conversation happening on sustainability. I would just suggest that get some technical skills in place, like get to know what is sustainability reporting, get to know what are aspects and indicators of sustainability that one needs to reach out to so that you are able to guide the corporates and organization
Right.
on the way that they should spin the narrative.
Okay, so if looking at it from a PR professional's perspective, what are the top three skills apart from getting to know about sustainability reporting? What are the top three skills that you would advise that they pick up before trying to create a career in this field?
First of all, get the narrative in place. So when I'm talking about narrative, what I mean is what's the story that needs to be told. Currently, the biggest story that is being told is about carbon neutrality, for example. Then touching upon that aspect, I would say that get the skills for it in place, in the sense a little technical expertise is required, a little knowledge is required about what do I mean by carbon neutral, what my understanding of sustainability is. So a little skills and a little knowledge is required on that front. Thirdly, I would say is that think about the people piece. So you should be a people's person because here what you can create is basically connections between the organization and outside the organization. Because currently we are in a space wherein the understanding of sustainability as such is not very high. The people who have the understanding don't really have the communication skills required to actually communicate at large on the subject. So you need to be that, I think that kind of platform, you need to provide the people within the company that kind of platform where they can talk about sustainability actions, and you need to convert those actions into simple terms that lay persons can understand. So I'm saying that you need to understand it first and then get the word out there.
Be the bridge between both parties and make sure that the message gets through.
Exactly. So you need to be a people's person to get that done.
Absolutely. So I'm going to dip into your vast experience.
Do you use the resources that you employ? So basically looking after water, waste, how do you ensure that the energy that you use is used at the optimum? So these are aspects of environment, aspect of sustainability. And of course, profit is to ensure that whatever you deliver is basically ensures the continuity of your enterprise. This touches upon the aspect of greener products also to ensure that the customers at the end of the day also get greener products which are good for the environment. So these are the three aspects of sustainability that are covered under people, planet, and profit.
Interesting. So, Priya, how essential a role does sustainability play in corporate storytelling on a global platform? And where is India on this one?
What is important in sustainability is to understand that the resources that we are using, employing currently, basically come up with a expiry date. So the water you use or the resources, the raw materials that you use have an expiry date. And one needs to understand that if one needs to ensure the continuity of their business, we will have to ensure that we take care of these resources, the raw materials or the virgin materials that we use. We'll have to ensure they have, I mean, we have plenty of them still around in the years to come. So I think that from that perspective, for your business itself, sustainability is vital. Secondly, I would say that in the global narrative on sustainability is very clear. People understand this story. They understand that if they have to continue their business, they need to take care of sustainability aspects. In India, I'm glad actually that this is, though it's a new narrative to talk about, we have seen in India people take on, for example, the LED entire movement, wherein we replaced conventional light fixtures with LED lights. That was a huge campaign that the government of India ran, and it has really converted into a lot of people
Right.
adapting to LED lights. So I would say that we have started on that journey. We have a long way to traverse because just looking at our sheer population, we can really create a big impact. But the good part is that we have started on that journey in India.
But do you think COVID has thrown a spanner in the works? The struggle for daily life and getting the economy back on its feet is what all the powers that be are pushing for. Has that pushed the sustainability conversation two steps back instead of four steps ahead? How has it changed the perception of sustainability?
Fortunately, what has happened in the past few years is that we are increasingly getting influenced by the Western concepts, Western world, and we are adapting very fast to the changing trends there. And sustainability, in a big way, in fact, has taken on Europe. If you talk about Europe or the US, for a very long time, they have been talking this language, in fact. And in India, though it is a relatively new concept, we have taken on it actually very fast. And why sustainability? Again, I'll say that why sustainability narrative is good for brand building is because this is the part of your company that reaches out to people. It touches people. People understand the language that you're trying to talk about. And it has, of course, a goodwill associated with it because what you're doing at the end of the day to cater to the people, planet, profit front is very important for your customers to know. So I would say this is easiest story that you can tell people because it touches their lives. They have given it a lot of importance. In fact, even in corporate world nowadays, it's very unusual for the investors to ask us questions which are related to sustainability. And there are a lot of calls which are investor calls centered around this conversation, wherein they want to know the companies that they invest in, what are they talking about, and what are they doing towards sustainability.
That's a very healthy development, I would say. Are there any studies that show that people care, that people, the end consumer, actually cares about this?
Tarun, in fact, in this space, you'll find a lot of studies that support this idea. We ourselves had conducted a very small sample survey at Mahindra. This was last year that we conducted this survey. We sampled 2,000 people across India and we asked them a very simple question that does sustainability matter to them? Are they ready to pay a premium for sustainability products? And the good part is that they are very much ready. What they require is these greener products to be accessible to them. And of course, they should know the merits of taking on these greener products. So these are two aspects to it. So now the ball is actually in the court of corporates because they need to reach out to consumers with greener products. They need to ensure that these greener products are accessible to their consumers. So those are two aspects that we need to work on so that people can take on greener products and greener processes.
Absolutely. But do you think this year, 2020, has COVID thrown a spanner in the works, two steps behind as compared to what we should be in terms of two steps forward? How has 2020 changed the perception of sustainability?
Actually, it's had the reverse effect. We all are experiencing climate change like we have never done before. It's part of our lives. The entire pandemic actually addresses that what can happen if climate change is not stopped in its track. So this scenario that we were talking about, saying like we were saying in 2040 or 2050, this is what could happen. It has stuck us today in 2020. So people, I would say, are much more aware about what climate change means. what aspects it will touch of our lives, how it will completely change the way we live. And COVID has actually brought that in forefront. And I'm having, in fact, a lot of more conversations around sustainability now than we have ever had.
Hmm, that makes sense. So let's take this conversation into the brand sphere. So, where does sustainability communication fit in within a corporate team? Is it a part of corporate communication or internal communication? Or is this a completely different department?
Sustainability communication, in fact, covers the entire gamut of communications. You would be addressing the employees through internal communication piece. The same sustainability narrative needs to go out to the media at large, for your customers, to your shareholders, to your investors, dealers, and anybody actually you can think of who would come in as your stakeholder. So the same narrative needs to be sent to everybody across. And what is interesting is that this is an aspect which covers almost all your stakeholders. So I would say that if I have to imagine it, you would be actually at the central pace of communication as far as sustainability is concerned. And you would be addressing all the stakeholders across, which is ideal format that one wants to be in.
So, this central space that you speak about, is this a reality in the overall Indian corporate ecosystem today? Or is it just lip service? Or are only select corporates making an effort to create this space?
Actually, a lot of it is driven by demand. So right now, the demand for sustainability communication is such when an investor actually asks a question, then the corporates actually see actually merit in getting somebody to do that job. This is primarily because this is a need-based thing that corporates set out to. So I'm seeing that year on year, there are corporates which are adding up to this kind of profile, that they have these profiles. Interestingly, when I was in the previous organization I was working with, that this was the first time that they had a sustainability communication. And even in Mahindra, this is the first time they have sustainability communication. This will develop through the years, I'm sure.
Interesting. So, how important is media advocacy and government relations as a part of what you do?
Once you look at it from the advocacy point of view, when you look at sustainability from an advocacy point of view of the narrative, then obviously government also forms part of that. Stakeholders, your stakeholders, what is the message that you want to send across? What we are doing right now is basically getting onto the same platforms that government, for example, government officials are getting on, and we are trying to hear what they want to talk about sustainability, their programs, how they are looking at sustainability for the country. And majority of the corporates are actually dovetailing their actions through the government. So I'm seeing that there's actually a lot of conversations happening around sustainability across sectors. This will develop further as the demand increases for sustainability products and processes, and I see that a lot of other voices will be added to this.
So, you have been in the field for over 15 years and worked in mass media verticals and in communication verticals in NGOs and for profit sector as well, where you have set a lot of milestones. I want to call upon that experience. In hindsight, when you look back, what would you recommend as a preferred route to make a move into sustainability communication? Media or pure play PR? Which would have made this easier for you?
I would say at this point of time, it's pretty open because sustainability is slightly technical in nature, but it's not a subject that one can't learn. Of course, one understands how resources are utilized, and there's a lot of technical skills that one requires. Like we have sustainability reporting, for example, which
Right.
is you would have to go through a GRI framework or some international framework that the IRC is another framework that we use in sustainability. So these frameworks are basically awareness related. You need to be aware of these frameworks. How do you utilize them? So slightly technical, but I would say that at this point, it's actually free for all because there's nobody who's an expert in it. There's no set pattern that one follows. Of course, you have to be a storyteller to begin with. And I believe that all PR people, whether it's PR people or whether it's people from the media, they all are very great storytellers. So right now the demand is for storytellers to tell that narrative on sustainability. So I think it's easy route for anybody. That whatever route you take does not matter as long as you're able to tell the narrative on sustainability.
Excellent. So, what you're telling me is if you ever thought about getting into this field, now would be the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now is the time. There's a lot of conversation happening on sustainability. I would just suggest that get some technical skills in place, like get to know what is sustainability reporting, get to know what are aspects and indicators of sustainability that one needs to reach out to, so that you are able to guide the corporates and organization
Right.
on the way that they should spin the narrative.
Okay, so if looking at it from a PR professional's perspective, what are the top three skills apart from getting to know about sustainability reporting? What are the top three skills that you would advise that they pick up before trying to create a career in this field?
First of all, get the narrative in place. So when I'm talking about narrative, what I mean is what's the story that needs to be told. Currently, the biggest story that is being told is about carbon neutrality, for example. Then touching upon that aspect, I would say that get the skills for it in place, in the sense a little technical expertise is required, a little knowledge is required about what do I mean by carbon neutral, what my understanding of sustainability is. So a little skills and a little knowledge is required on that front. Thirdly, I would say is that think about the people piece. So you should be a people's person, because here what you can create is basically connections between the organization and outside the organization. Because currently we are in a space wherein the understanding of sustainability as such is not very high. The people who have the understanding don't really have the communication skills required to actually communicate at large on the subject. So you need to be that, I think, that kind of platform. You need to provide the people within the company that kind of platform where they can talk about sustainability actions, and you need to convert those actions into simple terms that lay persons can understand. So I'm saying that you need to understand it first and then get the word out there.
Be the bridge between both parties and make sure that the message gets through.
Exactly. So you need to be a people's person to get that done.
Absolutely. So I'm going to dip into your vast experience, and it would be wonderful if you could share a few examples of global campaigns that have caught your attention in this vertical.
So sustainability, I'll take an example of Mahindra itself, because I've been very close to the campaigns that are run there. But there's this entire narrative on carbon neutrality, and we in fact were very successful in conveying to people why carbon neutrality was important. We did that on an international platform wherein we spoke India's commitments on the Paris Agreement and what that translates into for companies. We had Mr. Anand Mahindra actually sign on to the Paris Agreement as voice from corporates across the world. And so that was the trigger for it. And after that, we of course had a very successful GCAS seminar that we did in the US. So we even looked after that, and we have continued that conversation through the years on carbon neutrality. And I see that as very, very important conversation that Mahindra has owned in the public space on sustainability.
That's certainly an achievement. But Priya, can you break it down and help us understand the nuts and bolts of it? What was your role in making this happen?
So this conversation started within Mahindra 3 years back, wherein we wanted to choose the narrative we wanted to talk about on sustainability issues. We thought that carbon neutrality was an important piece that we need to highlight. These are efforts basically that the company takes on reducing its carbon footprint. And we thought that we had done a lot of work in this arena, and we wanted to highlight it. So all the material, all the media material or the platforms that we were able to provide spoke only that narrative, that what are we doing as a company on carbon neutrality. And fortunately for us, this narrative has helped us build up that conversation in India, because not many corporates talk or own this space. And currently, fortunately for us, we have been able to convey to the media at large, to people, to our customers, that we are a company that actually is working towards carbon neutrality. We recently also made an announcement wherein we spoke about that by 2040, which is 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement, we'll be a carbon neutral group, which is a very big deal because 10 years ahead of the scheduled Paris Agreement. So, and we are, of course, dovetailing it entirely to India's program on Paris Agreement also. So India is also a lot of commitments that it needs to do. So I'm saying that the entire narrative that we own for the last 3 years and how we have been able to center it around carbon neutrality is an important aspect that sustainability team within Mahindra has been able to achieve. And I think that was a very important thing that we have done, and we have seen it convert into, when we are looking at sustainable companies in the world or sustainable companies within India, we feature very high on that list. So the conversion has been very fast, and the people are able to connect Mahindra with a sustainable organization, and that's a huge plus for us, given that it's a conversation
Right.
which we have not been having for very long.
That's incredible. I'm sure your work must be soul satisfying. I mean, it sounds like, work satisfaction in your team must be at an all-time high. Is that really the case? I mean, what is the practical impact on ground in real time that your work has?
So people have actually, this is a very new field, and people are not aware that how should I tell these sustainable stories, that the work that I'm doing, why is it important? The most satisfying part of the job is that I'm able to convey to people that whatever small actions that you take, whether it's just switching off the light or ensuring that some greener processes in your plant, that actually dovetails into a carbon neutral company, which is a long term vision of other companies. So I'm saying that people are able to see that the small
Right.
actions that they take on a daily basis actually makes that big picture and makes a big impact. And that is why it's vital that they take those steps. So I feel that employees need to understand that. I feel that investors need to understand that baby steps that we take every day actually have a bigger, much bigger impact. And it's very important as a communicator to show them that picture. Otherwise, it's very easy for people to just give up saying that, how does it matter that I don't do this today? It's very important that you do
Right.
that today, because then you're building up that bigger picture.
So you see it actually trickling down to the general audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. You talk about the employees, they understand why sustainability is important. In fact, a lot of times they explain to us what are the sustainability related actions that they're taking. They might not understand that, how this bigger picture is being made, but they do understand the merit that them doing the daily actions that they do. The world at large, if I look at the media also, they also are giving a lot of importance to corporates who are taking in these actions. And I must mention here that even the media is learning these aspects as we grow, because it's not something there's no sustainability beat per se in media currently. But people are
Right.
developing those kind of skills. They are developing those kind of knowledge centers. They are becoming knowledgeable about that subject. So these are all positive trends that I'm seeing even in the media. And this is all thanks to whatever is happening in the corporate world.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. I did want to kind of, touch upon that subject as well. Media is an important invested party that has helped us grow the sustainability conversation forward. How have you seen the media community grow and warm up to the sustainability conversation over the last decade or so?
So media, in fact, in the beginning, they were not, I wouldn't say they were averse to the subject, but there was very limited understanding on the subject. And these were very big terms that were being floated around. People used to say these are all jargons. So even sustainability for that matter, because there was no definition of what sustainability is, there were a lot of different definitions going around in this. So people thought that this is too big a subject to actually cover. Now what has happened is that people have made definitions for themselves. They are looking at, journalists are looking at specific beats also for that example. They understand the impact
Wow.
that is happening. So that has entirely changed, because earlier when we used to talk about things, we used to always drill down for them what aspects we are touching upon. But now I'm seeing that there's more questions coming in from journalists. They are understanding the matter much more.
Absolutely.
Their nuances have come into their questions also. So I know that the knowledge on sustainability has definitely gone up as far as the media is concerned, and I'm
I'm
very happy
sure.
for that, because then it becomes easier and you have more conversations around it.
Absolutely, and that's so wonderful to hear. I'm sure, especially for you, I remember when you used to be on the field, you dedicated a fair amount of time doing research on a subject before you went on the field. It must be really heartening to see journalists now investing time in doing the same for sustainability.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will again say this: sustainability might seem technical, but it's an aspect that touches all our lives. So it's understand. I mean, you just take the effort and you'll understand. It's not a rocket science at the end of the day.
So I must ask, while the tribe of media who wants to dedicate time reporting on this grows, and may they grow even more, what role does social media play in the sustainability conversation? Has it created more confusion out there or has it given it a boost? How has it changed the conversation in the vertical?
In the past few years, social media has taken center stage as far as brand communications is concerned. The companies are using this not only as a tool to basically get out their stories, but also to bring in views from different kind of stakeholders that they want to reach out to. Hence, it's very important that this be used as a tool for narrating your sustainability story. What is missing currently is that a lot of emphasis is being made on brand communications, and very few brands are actually positioning their sustainability in the social media world. And this is something that I think we can work on. And in future, we'll see many more brand engagement on sustainability issues being done online.
Priya, this conversation has been enlightening for me, and I do hope our listeners have also learned more about sustainability communication. So, before we wrap up, I want you to give me quick answers for a rapid fire round. Should we begin? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Three people you admire in the field.
So one would be John Elkington, who actually coined the word of people, planet, and profit. He is, I would say, he's good a narrator. He's a very good
Right.
narrator on sustainability. Then in Indian space, there is Dr. Ajay Mathur, who's from Terry. He's brilliant as far as energy efficiency is concerned, as far as any of the aspects of sustainability, actually. But because he belongs to Terry, he's somebody I really admire as far as energy and anything energy related is concerned. And of course, there is Anil Van Ghosh, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Mahindra. I have actually worked very, very closely with him. And I've never met a man who has more knowledge about the subject, who has learned more on the job. So these are the three people I would like to mention.
Three organizations you admire in the segment, and can you share names beyond Mahindra?
I love the work that IKEA is doing. We have a lot of sharings that we have done with them. And it's been amazing the journey that they have taken in India also. So that's IKEA as one of them. Secondly, I would mention TERI, which is basically a government organization which looks after, called the Energy Resource Initiative. So it's an amazing organization that does work on energy. And I would mention the third one, maybe Unilever, because of the work that they do on sustainability. Also, because spin that they have, the narrative they have on sustainability is very high. So these are the three organizations I would say have done very good work on sustainability.
Right. Yes, these organizations have indeed done great work in sustainability and deserve to be mentioned. So, last question for the day. Parting shots for PR professionals who want to make a career in this field.
Number one would be don't get overawed by the subject. It's easy to understand. There are jargons which you can easily learn. So do that. I mean, learn the jargons. Second thing is, this
Right.
is about the narrative. So it's like any other subject that you would talk about. The important thing is to remember there's a sustainability narrative to every aspect that you touch upon in sustainability. And please stick to that narrative. Thirdly, I would say, like I mentioned earlier, that you need to talk to people, get out there within the organization, talk to people who matter, think about and have as many conversations as possible, because they might not see the value of it, but through these interactions, you'll be able to convince them about the value, plus you'll have a great story to tell.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking out the time today to speak to us. It was lovely having you on this podcast and, speaking to you about sustainability. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Tarun, and it was amazing to be on this and discuss a subject really close to my heart. Thank you.
And wonderful. Thank you.
So, that was Priya Zucchi giving us an insight into how the sustainability conversation fits into the corporate brand building world and what you need to know to be successful at it. Would also like to give a shout out to the good folks at PRPOI. This episode was brought to you via a special arrangement with them. Thank you again for tuning in today, and we will see you next week for another interesting conversation from the world of communication.